Good afternoon and welcome to this webinar with me, Adam Rose. In this webinar we're going to have a look at part assembly and drawing templates. The first thing we're going to do within SolidWorks is to build up a part or assembly template. We're going to have a look at custom properties. They're a thing that you quite often use all the time within your part assembly and drawing templates, and we're actually going to build up a template to easily apply those in a number of models. From my start menu, I'm just going to open up the property tab builder that you'll find within SolidWorks tools. It's a great tool for being able to build up a custom list of properties that we want to choose from and apply within a part document here as I've got it set to. You can also use assembly, drawing and weldment. The first thing I need to do is just to name this thing, so I'm just going to call it part properties. I can then start applying properties within it. So the first one is just going to be a simple text box, as it says there. We just drag that into this area and then we can start playing around with it by adding in, I'm just going to call this one description. So this one is going to be a description of the part, and we want to basically add that and give it a name. This is the actual properties name we're applying here. So I'm just going to find the property called description, and I want to make sure that the value for this is linked to the actual part's name. So I can link it to, as I see you scroll down here, the SolidWorks file name. It just means that whatever I name the part will become its description, and that will then allow me to feed that through as a custom property. So the configurations here, I want to make sure that this one is set to a custom property at all levels of configuration instead of just specified levels. So now what I want to do is apply the second property. Now this one is going to be a revision within here. Now it's often quite hard to tell with here, because I've added two properties in, it's often quite hard to tell which properties should go at which level, i.e. whether we should apply a property at part level or drawing level. I'll show you this slide. If we have a look at this one, it just gives you an example of some of the kind of places that you would apply properties. You'll see that certain items apply at all levels, things like revision, and that's where revision of a document could change specifically within all three of these. We've also got a different description for part and assembly. You may also find that you want a different mass as well. So you've got quite a few properties that would be the same throughout the levels, but the reason is because obviously a part would be lighter than the assembly as a whole. We're also likely to get more specific items like the finish on the part or the material of the item, and more generalized items like the project number and the customer it's actually going to within the assembly level. And as for the drawing, it's all things like who actually produced it and who's checked it, because obviously that's going out actually for the manufacturer of the particular assembly or part document. So hopefully that gives you some kind of idea of the kind of properties we should be applying at certain levels. So I'm now going back to the custom property tab builder, and I'm just going to start applying some more properties within here. So at the moment we just got a blank list, and I'm going to give it a name. I'm just going to write in here revision and select the property called revision as well. The list in here, we could apply a number of different revision types. There is a short snippet video on this one if you do want to learn more about different revision types. I'm just going to do it from 1 to D first of all, and I'm also going to allow custom values for people to put in their own. The next item I'm going to add in is the material of this item. And I'm going to play around and just add the item name material as well, and that's going to be linked to an actual property, SolidWorks special properties. So these are properties which will exist in every document, so we can actually find the material there within that list, and it will just find whatever the material is and link to it. Okay, now the next item I'm going to add in is just the mass of this particular item. So again, it's just another text box. Okay, so this one, like I said, is just the weight of the item. And again, there's a property for that. And by linking that to the mass, SolidWorks special property for the mass, we can automatically pick up, as the model changes, the direct changes to there. The last one is just going to be the finish on this particular part. So this obviously can be a number of items, so I'm going for a list. Okay, I found it there. And then I'm just going to put in a few items in here. Okay, and then I'm going to select it all configuration levels and also allow some custom values if users want them. So now I can go ahead and save this within my computer. As soon as I click save, it takes me to the default location for these particular documents. So I just need to give it a name. I'm just going to name it part template. And you'll see it's got the extension PRT PRP. So it's a part property template. I'm going to save it in that location. Okay, and then I'm just going to close this down, and we'll go back to SolidWorks now. And within SolidWorks, we can just start up a new document. We want to start constructing the first of our templates. The first one I'm going to start working with is a part template. So I'm just going to go to File and New, and we can start just from any blank document. When users normally go to File and New, they'll find they have a menu like this one, where you've got either a novice or an advanced screen, and we can just select the part from there to open up a blank document. So this brings in a series of properties and settings that we can adjust. If we have a look at the custom properties that I've applied here, you'll be able to see the description is picking up the part name, the material is automatically being adjusted, and so is the weight. And we can add each of those individually. I'm not going to add any of those first of all. I'm just going to leave them blank, but we can see later on we can have a look at that and how to apply those. I need to have a look at actually, first of all, creating a part template which will be unique. Some of the changes we can make here are to change the scene. So I'm just going to change from the standard scene to a warm kitchen. And I'm also going to show the standard planes within the design, and this allows me just then to be able to use these. There's a number of other things we can do. We can also have a play around with the options. If I bring up the options menu, we'll see there's a series of different types of options within SolidWorks. There's system options, and then we've got document properties. The difference between those, system options are applied at every level within SolidWorks, and document properties are document specific. So when we change the template, the properties change. I can adjust these, so I'm just going to make some changes. I'm going to turn on, show my cosmetic threads will show up. I'm also going to slightly increase the image quality. And I also want to go ahead and just change the font size and my dimensions. Okay, so with that change, I'll click OK. And now I can go ahead and actually save this away onto my machine. So I'm going to save it away just by going to File, Save As, and then I'm just going to drop down this list. You'll see the third item down is Part Template, and that takes me to the default location for SolidWorks templates. I'm going to browse into my machine and save it somewhere slightly different. I'm going to save it onto my E drive in Innova Templates. I'm going to give it a name which is obviously relevant to this, so I'll call it Webinar Part. And click OK. Alright, so with that then applied to the design, I can go ahead and just make some slight adjustments and actually create a new part from this template. So if I close down this first initial model, I can then go to New, and you'll see that this part, Webinar Part, hasn't automatically appeared. That's because it's not saved in one of those default locations. I can add a new default location just by going to my Options menu, and on the left hand side here under File Locations, I can add a new location just by clicking the Add button under Document Templates. So I'm going to add that Innova templates location in, and I can click OK, and it will just verify that with me. And now if I go and create a new document, we'll see that I've got one tab for normal standard templates and one tab for the ones I've created. So I'm going to open up that webinar part. And I'm going to create a few properties within here now. So I can select from those standard items that I created earlier on. So I'll apply a material to it. It will just ask me if I want to save those properties when I do. And I'm also going to adjust the finish on here. I click apply, and then we can see the more properties button at the bottom. If we click that, it allows us to then view those properties that we've applied within the design. So I'm now just going to create some simple geometry so that we can use this for later on to actually construct a few more templates. And I'm just going to extrude that up. And I'm just going to go and add a small fillet around the top edge. Okay. And I'm just going to sketch on this top face and just add a slot on there. Dimensioning that up. Okay, and I'm going to extrude that down into the model. So I'll go to the top menu and click save. I'm just going to save that onto my drive. Okay, now that that's been created, I can close down this document and I'll use it later on. I want to go ahead now and start creating some drawing templates. And now when you're creating a drawing template, it's quite difficult to often understand the difference between the different types of sheet format and drawing templates. So I've just created some simple slides here so that we can have a look at those. The first thing we'll be having a look at is a sheet format. As we can see, this contains a drawing border, a title block, standard notes, any notes linked to properties, and any logos like you can see here, as well as any table or anchor points that we put in so we can anchor a table in position. So we're going to have a look at creating that. In order to do that, again, we're starting up from a blank document. Now we can either, like we did before, open up one of the standard drawing templates within SolidWorks, or we can go ahead and open up a DWG file, something that might have been created in another program. So we can use the standard drawing template that was used in that program and just update it for SolidWorks' use. So you'll see here, I've got a DWG that I've selected from my open menu. I'm just going to choose to open that within SolidWorks. When we import a DWG or DXF, we get a number of options. I'm going to import it as a drawing and convert these items into SolidWorks. We can isolate the layers when we import. Those are just for the drawing sheet, and those that are for the sheet format. So I'm going to turn on the sheet format and tick the box next to that in this layer. So that means that then everything on the format layer will go into the sheet format in SolidWorks. We can then start adjusting things like the sheet that we've got here and the units. Now it often will pick up these automatically, and you'll see it's done quite a nice job of selecting that A3 size and choosing millimeters as well as the correct scale. And I'm just going to center it in the sheet to make sure it's in the right position. I'll click finish and it'll just cycle through and open it up for me. And then I can go ahead and start constructing that sheet format first of all. So all of these items that I've got within here, these are all just standard sketch lines. I'm just going to delete those, and that removes them from the drawing. Just leave you with the border that I want to work with. So predominantly, in order to edit the sheet format, we just right click and go edit sheet format. And because we've isolated that layer in the right place, we can zoom in and then have a look at it. So the first thing I want to do is to delete this notes right here, and I'm going to put in an image file in its location. Okay, so I've got an image file that I've got created on my system. Let's just have a look at that. There we go, that's the image file that I'm going to use, and I'm going to load that within SolidWorks. In order to load that into position, I'm just going to go to the menu at the top, under Insert, select Object, and we can create from File in order to browse on our machine. So I'm going to browse to that location and select the image. Now the thing to bear in mind when you're bringing in images within a drawing is not to make them too big. Obviously you've got to bear in mind whenever this drawing will be opened, it will be opened with this image inside of it as well. So if I move that into position, and then we can just have a look at that. If we come out the sheet format, we can see that's in place and it's nicely in position. And now I can just start editing some of these notes. So I've created a lot of properties earlier on, and within that part model I made up, I had properties within there. I also need to have properties within the drawing to link to those. So things like drawing number, I need a property to link to. We could just have a standard note, but obviously it's not going to update dynamically. You'll see on this right hand side we have got certain places we can add things that will come straight through. Things like the size of the document are automatically generated within here. So I'm going to just copy this note here, just by using my keyboard to copy that, and just move that over and use that note again at this position. So I'm going to link to one of those standard custom properties that's available within any document. Just by double clicking, I can choose to link to a property on the left hand side there in that button. And we can link to properties of the current document or a model that's been specified in this document. We can also link to a component in an assembly if you've got an annotation attached to it. I'm going to drop down this menu for current document, which is the drawing, and then I'm going to select a property that relates to the size of the sheet. You'll see there's one here, sheet format size. If I select that, it's automatically picked up the fact that this is an A3 sheet, and that's been brought straight through. Okay, the next thing we want to do is to link through a few more of these properties. I want to link through the title to a title of a document. I've got no documents in here, so in order to do that I need to actually open up and bring in a part file within this drawing. So on this right hand side in my view palette, I'm just going to browse for a document, and I'm going to select a standard file. We'll use that one I created earlier on, the template constructor, and I'm going to drag that into position. Okay, so there we have it. I don't need to create many views, it's just enough to actually bring through the properties. And now I can go ahead and edit the sheet format again. Okay, now to make changes to these notes, I want to link them through to the description of my part, so I can just double click and click link to property in order to select those. So you'll see we've got a model specified in the sheet properties. That's the model we just brought in, and I can link to its description that we added earlier on. If I click OK on that, you'll see it automatically picks up the name of the part. We can also link through to the drawing number, although we haven't got one created. So the next thing to do is to create one and actually make some properties for this drawing itself. So in my custom properties tab, you'll see I've actually got a template for this document as well. So I'm going to add some properties in, and these will then allow me to link to. Okay, click apply, and then I click more properties to check that they've gone through to the right place. And now I can actually edit sheet format just to link to those. So again, it's just a case of copying the notes in there. I'm just going to delete the text out, so it's a blank note, and then copy it again down to another location. So I can use that in both of those locations there. So in order to just adjust this one, I'm going to link to a property once more. Link to a property that we just added, that drawing number. And I'm also going to link to the material of the part. So again, model specified in sheet properties. So it's linked through to those straight away. And we've almost constructed this now. We've got quite a few nice properties that have been linked through, which will dynamically update. And we've also got this logo in position. I just want to finish it off by adding a little border around here, so we can do that with any sketch items. All the lines you'll see in this have just been created with the normal sketch geometry. Just drag that into position so that it's roughly vertical. Okay, and then we've got this actually constructed now. Now you'll notice that I'm not able to edit it at the moment from outside of the template. So if I right click again and edit the sheet format, I can do one more change just to add a title block. I can do that from the right click menu. If I define the title block area to a certain place, like bottom right hand corner here, I can then go back in and use that bottom right hand corner and go in and edit it any time. So I can select certain notes that I want to edit, like these ones here, or just standard notes that haven't been linked to anything yet, and we just click OK, and then they're now editable from outside the sheet format. So if we come out of the sheet format, I'll just double click on these just to edit them. And you'll see if we edit this one, we can change it to something like galvanized steel, click apply, click close, and it automatically updates. And that's not only updated the drawing, but it's also updated the part automatically, as you can see there. Okay, so with those changes in place, I'm going to go ahead and just save this drawing format away. You can just do save sheet format to do that, and then this has taken me to the default location. So I'm going to save it here as webinar A3. And I need to link to that in this template, so I can now start constructing the template. Before we do, I just want to have a look at the kind of things you might expect to see in a drawing template. So we can see we've got the sheet as a whole. That includes the sheet format, so it's actually the thing we just created. Any document properties that we've defined, so any options basically, or any predefined views, which we're going to have a look at. Okay, so the first thing I need to do is to delete these drawing views. In a template, we don't want any drawing views in position because it will actually save those away with the document. We're looking for a blank piece of paper now. And the next thing is just to make sure that this sheet format I created earlier on is actually linked to the template. To do that, I just right click and go to properties. I can then browse to a location on my machine. You'll see we've got this webinar A3, and that links it in. We just click OK on that one. That's linked the notes in position. I also want to make sure that the properties I've created and added into this document are left blank. I'm just going to go to File, and I'm going to go to Properties menu just to edit those. So I'm going to leave them as blank values so that any user can add items in there later on. Okay. And click OK on that one just to accept that change. And now I'm just going to actually adjust some of the options. Again, I just want to go to document properties to do that because these are the ones that are saved in the template. I'm going to adjust the detailing and just again this time adjust the font size from a regular to a bold. Now you can save it away at this point and it's perfectly fine. And you can also add some predefined views into it, which means that it's a bit easier to create your drawings at a later stage. I'm going to do that in this example just to show you how they work. So I'm going to insert from the insert menu a drawing view. And as you'll see down the bottom, we've got predefined. We just put that where we want it. And then we get the properties appear on the left hand side, and these allow us to adjust so that we're getting front view, hidden lines removed, or hidden lines shown, for example. And we can also project out from that, just like any normal drawing view. The difference between this and a normal one is it's not got a model loaded into it. And I'm just going to go for a third and final predefined view in this top right hand corner. and that's going to be an isometric with shaded with edges. Okay, so now that's created, I'm going to save the template. We go to File, Save As to do that, and I'm going to drop down the type to template, and again it takes me to that default, so I'm going to browse to my E drive. This item is going to be called Webinar A3, and I'm going to save it away. And it just warns me that any non-standard views will be deleted. Okay, so now that that's done, I'm going to close down the document because I no longer need it. I've constructed my template now. Now, one of the things that you want to do over and over within SolidWorks is actually create another sheet from the standard one that you've created. You don't want to go through that process every time to create an A2, an A3 sheet. It's really simple and easy to do that. We just go and file a new and actually use that A3 template that we just constructed that's now appearing in the list. And just to make changes to it, we can right click and go to properties. We've got a standard sheet size, or we can put in a custom size of our own. Now, if you're not sure what size you want this to be, I've got a few standard sheet sizes here. We can see there's the A3 size that we currently got. I'm going to go for an A2. Within here, I'm just going to type in that 594 by 420, and that will adjust my page up to an A2, and you'll see that that note has automatically changed. So now I want to adjust the sheet format so that it surrounds the whole page instead of just this bottom left hand corner. So we just edit sheet format again to do that, and the easiest way to move it over into position is just to window select around it from right to left. And from the sketch toolbar we can use move entities just to select a point and select a second point to move to it, and we can do that in this top left as well. So you see you've got move from and to, or you can do X, Y if you want to. I find from and to is a bit easier, but maybe not quite so precise. So with that in position, I want to make these lines meet up. I'm just going to fix this top left hand corner and the bottom right so that they don't move as I'm fixing them. So I'll zoom in there and just select this point and just fix it. Okay, and now I can just control select these to merge them together. And we just need to finish it off by pulling the note and redefining that title block. We can right click to edit the title block now to change and move it into position. So I'm going to click the tick, and that's actually created and well defined our sheet format now. So we can go ahead and actually save the sheet format at this stage. This time I'm going to save it as Webinar A2. Okay, and now that's in position, I can go ahead and actually do things with that Webinar A2. I need to reference it to the document, and this is a process you need to go through every time you move the templates to a new drive. So say you've copied them to a drive on the server, you need to go through this process of just making sure that your templates are linked to your sheet formats. So I'm just going to click browse, and it'll link me through to the standard location, and we can link and actually select the Webinar A2 in there. Okay, select OK, and it gives us that standard note we had before. Now I can move these drawing views out of position, so I'm just going to move them where I want them to space them out on the page. Okay, and now we can save the template. Okay, save that again in that standard location. This time A2. Alright, so with both of those created, we'll have a look at those now. You go to File and New to pick on one of those. So I'm going to select my A3 template that I created first of all, and I'm just going to load a document into it. So in order to load a model in, I just right click and select Load Model, Insert Model, sorry, and then we can browse to our machine to find a relevant one. So I'm just going to use this one. Okay, and that gets loaded in, and then we can do it at this top right hand corner as well. If say we want a different model, we can use one there. Okay, so with that constructed, the last thing to do in this drawing would just be to apply those properties from the standard ones. So hopefully that's given you a good idea of where to go with templates and how to construct them and how to deal with them a bit easier. Thanks very much for watching, and here's the up and coming webinars. So we got one on the 5th of April for customizing the toolbox, one on the 12th for an introduction to surface modeling, one on the 19th to setting up the workgroup vault. So hopefully you'll find those useful.